This is the story about the old gold mine town of Bourne, Oregon. It's also a story about how an investor mined the pockets and wallets of anyone who bought the story. Long before it became a ghost town tucked in the pines of the Blue Mountains, Bourne, Oregon went by another name, Cracker City. The little camp took its name from nearby Cracker Creek, where a discovery of gold in 1888 set off one of eastern Oregon's liveliest rushes. A Massachusetts lawyer named Jonathan Bourne soon caught wind of the excitement. In 1899, he purchased the Eureka and Excelsior mine, better known as the E&E, one of the richest producers in the district. By the following year, the town had been renamed in his honor. Bourne later moved to Portland and even served as a U.S. Senator, but his name would forever be tied to Oregon's mining frontier. An Oregonian article from August 1888 described the area in its prime. 80 men working day and night, half running drills, the other half driving tunnels deep into the mountain. Timber smoke hung in the air, the clang of drills echoed through the valley, and every man believed he was standing on a fortune. During the 1890s, the Cracker Creek district became one of Oregon's top gold producers. Mines like the North Pole, the E&E, the Golconda, and the Columbia built the town's prosperity. Between all the mines, the Bourne area produced an estimated 430,000 to 480,000 ounces of gold, worth roughly $9 to $10 million at the time, or over $1 billion in today's prices. Around 1,500 people called Bourne home in those booming years. A proper mining city with hotels, stores, and a saloon on every corner. But ore veins don't last forever. By the early 1900s, the best ore was gone, and Bourne began to fade. The streets emptied, the mills slowed, and only a few miners remained. That's when a smooth-talking promoter named Wallace White arrived, and Bourne's story took a darker turn. White showed up in 1904 posing as an Ohio mining man. In truth, he was a clever swindler. He built a grand home overlooking the town, meant to impress visiting investors. From his mansion, he spun tales of immense wealth locked within his Sampson Mining Company, if only the right backers would invest. Guests were dazzled with fine dinners, tours, and talk of fabulous returns. However, most of these folk left these visits with empty pockets and worthless stock certificates. Later newspaper stories claimed White's empire collapsed in 1906, but that wasn't quite true. Records show he kept operating schemes across the country for nearly another decade. A 1903 Sumter Miner article had already warned that White was linked to the shady American magazine of mining and investment, calling his methods those of the fakir. Years later, on one of his cross-country trips, he was still found selling shares in his Sampson Mining Company to hopeful investors from Ohio to L.A. Depending on where he was, he called himself a mining engineer, a consultant, or a representative for wealthy syndicates. He was everywhere and nowhere at once, a man living on talk and promises. By 1915, his trail had finally gone cold, and Bourne itself was nearly silent. The mills stood still, cabins sagged under the snow, and the once grand house of Wallace White looked down over a town that no longer existed. Today, a few weathered buildings and the whisper of Cracker Creek are all that remain. The wind that drifts through Bourne's ruins carries more than the dust of old mines. It carries the echoes of miners, dreamers, and a swindler who sold a mountain full of gold that never was. Well, folks, that about wraps up this week's video. If you like stories of swindlers and conmen of the Old West, you just might like this story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.